Hello and welcome back to another episode of Glass with Billy. I'm here again in the same exact clothes. So we're obviously...
Should I take it off?
No,
look different?
please don't take off your clothes. Today we have a brand new episode and we're going to be talking about how long does it take to learn to speak Korean. And people ask me this all the time in all of my videos, and I always just reply, well, I have been learning Korean for 11 years, but I never say I learned Korean, and that's because Korean or any language is not something that you learn it and then, forget about it. You always have to keep learning it or you're going to be forgetting it. So I wanted to talk about what learning Korean means, like, different levels. Like, are you talking about learning Korean to a beginner level or an intermediate level, or are you talking about becoming near native? So if you're asking about how you can become able to have a simple conversation in Korean, how long would you think that would take to become able to have a simple conversation in Korean?
I mean, whenever we talk about this matter, right, how many years it's going to take to get to level A, level B, I kind of find it irrelevant, number of years, because in reality, what really matters a lot more than how many years is how many hours, right? So
That's
if
a good
you've
point.
been learning for 5 years, but if you put in only 1 minute per week, right?
Who does that?
I mean, that's different from somebody who's putting like 30 hours a day
Yeah.
for a year.
Right.
That's far more impressive than the former.
Right.
So number of hours is a lot more important than number of years.
Yeah.
And what's even more important than number of hours is the quality of hours you're putting in. So when you're studying Korean, when you're listening to it and you're reading, what kind of mindset are you in, right? Are you focused or distracted, right? Are you I mean, there are so many different kind of mindset you could be in.
Yeah.
Like if you're focused, then you're gonna learn better. Obviously, there's not the same number of hours that you're putting in than another person putting in the same number of hours.
But does anyone keep track of how many hours they study?
No, that's another thing, right?
In my case, I lived in Korea. I used Korean all day, and I studied for at least 4 hours of actual studying or so, and 6 or more hours a day of practicing. But some of those hours might have been, kind of hanging around and just being in Korea, and other hours would be actively talking with people. But it's hard to know exactly which of those hours were the most focused. Yeah. And it took me about 3 months to have a basic conversation, but that was in my case, under my conditions. I don't consider myself a fast learner, but other people might take, some people might only take a month if they're in that sort of extreme situation, or 6 months, or some people could take a year, depending how much they're exposed.
Right,
it's really, how well are you studying? How often are you studying?
And as I was saying, the X number of hours for one person is different from the same number of hours for another person. I mean, it comes down to how much are you engaged? Are you engaged or are you bored when you're reading or listening? Or I think this is the most important part of the whole quality of our issue. Are you inspired or discouraged? Right? If you keep feeling that I'm not going to learn it, I can't learn it.
That's hard. Yeah, that's really hard when you feel like that.
Then no matter how many hours you're putting into listening to Korean or learning Korean, your brain is not picking it up as well as the other person who's learning with confidence, with the sense of security. I'm going to get there. 잘 키워.
The tires are gone. He doesn't work here.
하얀 옷 입은 사람이요?
That
그런 사람
guy?
없는데?
We've been trying to get rid of him. 저 사람 계속 들어오는데.
He stole about 20 cars so far from our customers. So I'm going to wrap up the argument by saying one sentence.
Okay, yeah.
So that's what I'm talking about when I said quality of hours. And I think it's one of the most important factors people tend to ignore.
That can be really disheartening for people. Sometimes people will message me, like, I've been living in Korea for a year, but I still can't have a basic conversation. And it's that, like, if you say you're studying for 30 minutes a day, how are you studying? Are you just watching TV, or are you trying to practice speaking? Or then no matter how well you're doing that 30 minutes, it's only 30 minutes a day. It's not that much. Maybe the rest of your day is all done in English, and then it can be really hard to learn, and then you feel disheartened. Like, am I not smart? Can I not do this too? But you can. It just takes a lot of exposure, a lot of studying, focused studying, not just distracted in other things, and a lot of practice. If you're in the United States, as most people are when they're studying Korean, and you're studying like 15 minutes a day, you're going to see some improvement over time, but you can't expect to be fluent at Korean after a year in only that short amount of time. if you're doing, however, like 5, 6, 7 hours a day of intense studying in the United States, you're probably going to improve the same as someone who's living in Korea and just doing regular things in Korea. So then what about to become fluent in Korea? Would you say the same thing? Does it just take a lot of time and a lot of studying to become fluent in Korean?
A lot of time, a lot of studying. So I guess the best strategy to go about it is not to think about it, not have any expectation. I think that's the most important advice I could give to the learners there, both people learning Korean and Koreans learning English too.
So what would you say to someone who asks this question? I get this question too. I want to train to become a translator in Korean, or I want to train to do a job working in Korean, and I've started learning the basics. How long until, let's say I study a lot, how long until I can become fluent enough to use Korean for working? What would you say to someone like that?
I'll repeat the same thing that I've been saying all along. It not only comes down to how many years, but how many hours, and the quality of those hours, right? How focused are you? How engaged are you? And how inspired are you? I think these three things kind of come together to determine the efficiency, the effectiveness of your learning. So it's not just a simple matter of how many hours or how many years. There's a lot more qualitative aspect to it. So that's what I would tell them. Although it would not satisfy their...
Yeah, it's the true answer, but it's not satisfying enough. They want to hear, well, not everyone, some people want to hear 3 years, 5 years, 2 years.
Yeah, people want certainty, right?
They want
X
certainty.
number of years,
yeah.
Then I'm going to be fluent. But the reality is, nothing is certain in language learning. It's all chaotic, it's all unpredictable. And personally, I never knew that I would be having conversation in English about this kind of subject matter in English with the native speaker.
Your English is really good.
It's pretty decent, right? But this was unthinkable. 10 years ago, 20 years ago, unthinkable. So, totally unpredictable.
Right. If people ask me how long, I would say, after about a year or so of living in Korea and studying all day, I thought I could say most of what I wanted to say, mostly in the way I wanted to say it, but that doesn't mean that it's going to be the same for someone else. Other people might be much faster or, much slower. This was just my experience with it. So but it's not fair to judge yourself according to how other people learn, because they're not learning the exact same way you're learning. So just go on your own schedule. If if you're actually studying the language and if you're putting in enough time and doing enough practice, and if you're not and you want to get good at Korean faster, then just increase how much time you're studying and how you're studying. You can also message me. I'd be open to giving you suggestions on a study schedule if you're not sure what to do. Then the final question would be, how about to speak Korean like a native? How long do you think that would take? Because I can't. I'm not near native level. Near native is a Korean would meet you, and if they close their eyes, they would think you're a Korean until they open their eyes. And you could say anything about anything you want in nearly perfect. You might have like some tiny pronunciation mistakes.
Little slip here and there.
Yeah, but it's not going to be enough that someone would not think that you're a Korean if they couldn't see your face.
One thing I want to emphasize is that even among native Korean speakers out there, there's a huge variation in the way they use their language, their own language. Like people who are like Yujae who work as anchormen, actors, they speak way better Korean
His
than I
Korean
do.
is really clear also.
I know, very clear. And even when he throws out jokes really fast, he doesn't make mistakes.
No.
Because when I try to do that, I make grammatical mistakes in Korean. So where's the top? Right? Where is that finish line? There's no finish line there, even among native speakers.
Right.
So I guess that's kind of wrong goal to shoot for.
Yeah, I think that's not the right goal you should ever be going for. For me, I visit Korea every single year for about 2 months a year, and my entire life is spent studying Korean and answering questions and immersed in Korean. But I do not ever see myself reaching that level, near native level. Because realistically, it's not going to happen. I would have to live in Korea my entire life and have been born in Korea pretty much, or gone there at a much younger age to get more time. It's not something that happens, so don't ever set that as a goal for yourself.
I mean, for me, it's a huge liberation. As soon as I gave up on the idea of becoming a native speaker, like a native speaker in English, I realized that that's kind of impossible goal, as you said.
A lot of Koreans have that goal, to become English, like to speak English like a native speaker.
Right.
You could speak it fluently, and lots of people speak it fluently. And you speak it fluently, and I have many friends who speak very well.
But you would not mistake me for native speakers.
Well,
and
no.
Which doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's good enough. There's no problems with having any conversation. So yeah, you can set a goal at becoming fluent, but don't think about setting a goal at becoming a native. Don't look at anyone else for comparisons because they're not studying the way that you're studying.
I mean, never compare yourself to someone else.
Yeah.
Instead, compare yourself to yourself.
That's good.
A year ago.
Let's finish with that. Compare yourself to yourself a year ago. I'm Billy. This is Johnson. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. 그럼 다음에 또 봐.
다음에 또 봐.